Why honey never spoils. The sweet secret that survived thousands of years. Imagine opening a dusty tomb from ancient Egypt, pushing aside heavy stone slabs, and finding a pot of honey that is 3,000 years old. You reach in, take a fingerful, and find that it is still perfectly edible. This isn't a fairy tale. Archaeologists have actually found edible honey in pharaohs' tombs dating back to 1300 BCE. While almost every other food on Earth rots, ferments, or grows mold, honey remains a nutritional time capsule. So, what is the secret recipe that makes this golden substance practically immortal? To understand why honey never spoils, we have to look at how bees actually make it. It starts with nectar, a watery solution of sugar and minerals found in flowers. Foraging bees collect this nectar and bring it back to the hive. At this stage, it is about 80% water. If it stayed like that, it would ferment in days. But bees have a secret weapon: teamwork and physics. Back at the hive, the bees pass the nectar from mouth to mouth, adding an enzyme called glucose oxidase. This enzyme breaks down the sugars and creates a byproduct called hydrogen peroxide. If you remember your high school chemistry, you know hydrogen peroxide is a potent antiseptic. It is the same stuff you put on a scraped knee to kill bacteria. By naturally infusing the nectar with this compound, bees essentially create a biological shield against infection. But the process isn't done yet. The bees then deposit this mixture into the wax cells of the honeycomb. They begin to fan their wings at an incredible speed. This creates a constant, intense airflow that evaporates the excess water. They keep fanning until the water content drops from 80% down to about 17%. This low water content is the second pillar of honey's immortality. Bacteria and fungi need moisture to survive and thrive. When the water content is below 18%, the environment becomes hyperosmotic. In simple terms, the honey is so dense with sugar that it literally sucks the water out of any microbe that dares to enter it. It is a process called osmosis. Any bacteria that lands on honey is essentially dehydrated to death before it can ever start a colony. There is a third, critical factor: the pH level. Honey is naturally acidic, with a pH typically between 3 and 4. This acidity is just another barrier that most spoilage-causing bacteria simply cannot cross. So, you have a triple threat defense system. You have the hydrogen peroxide, the low moisture content, and the high acidity. It is a biological fortress. But the wax honeycomb serves as the final, physical seal. Once the bees are satisfied with the consistency, they cap the cell with a layer of beeswax. This makes the storage container airtight and moisture-proof. As long as the lid remains closed, the honey is safe. However, there is one major catch: moisture. If you leave a jar of honey open in a humid kitchen, it will begin to absorb water from the air. If the water content climbs back above 20%, the yeast that was kept dormant by the high sugar concentration will suddenly wake up. This is when the fermentation process begins, and that is how honey eventually spoils. But if you keep the lid tight, it stays good forever. Now, you might have noticed your honey turning cloudy or solid in the pantry. This is called crystallization. People often mistake this for spoilage and throw it away, but that is a huge mistake. Honey is a supersaturated solution, meaning it contains more sugar than the liquid can technically hold at room temperature. Over time, the glucose molecules start to crash out of the solution, forming tiny crystals. This is not a chemical change, it is a physical one. You can easily reverse it by placing the jar in a bowl of warm water. The heat melts the crystals, and the honey returns to its original, liquid state. It is also worth noting that the flavor of honey is a record of the landscape. Bees visit up to 2 million flowers to create just 1 pound of honey, depending on the nectar source. Whether it is clover, lavender, or eucalyptus, the honey takes on a unique chemical signature. This diversity is what makes honey so complex, yet the underlying preservation physics remain identical regardless of the flower. Humanity has relied on this preservation for millennia. Before the invention of modern refrigeration, honey was the primary sweetener and the most reliable food source for long winters. It was used as a battlefield wound dressing for centuries. During World War I, some doctors used honey to treat wounds because it inhibited bacterial growth while keeping the tissue moist. We weren't just eating it, we were using it as medicine because our ancestors figured out long before the microscope that honey was the one thing that refused to decay. There is something profound about the idea of a food that defies the laws of entropy. When you eat a spoonful of honey, you are consuming a product of thousands of miles of flight, thousands of hours of evaporation, and a chemical process that has been perfected by bees for over 100 million years. So, next time you dig a jar of honey out from the back of your cupboard, don't worry about the date on the bottom. Don't worry about the crystals or the color. Think about the fact that you are holding a substance that could have been created when your great-grandparents were born, or perhaps even earlier, and it hasn't aged a single day. In a reality where everything eventually breaks down and returns to the earth, honey remains a beautiful, golden reminder that some things are built to last forever. If we could bottle that kind of durability, what else could we change about the way we view our own consumption? Perhaps we don't need to chase the newest and the freshest. Maybe, just maybe, the secret to longevity is finding a way to keep out the things that cause us to break down in the first place.